Alright, a little Uno battery update, rather quizzical thing that this thing is doing is I noticed the blinking light on the top was blinking a different pattern than it typically does. I don't freaking remember. In any case, the last drive I took, did a couple laps around the block, 4th of July. Today's the 16th. So last time I drove this thing, and then just plugged it in afterwards. The battery life seemed really low, oddly. Made it like a few laps on a full charge and then started acting like it was low. I have a little gauge, on the dash that will tell me. But in any case, fully charged it, and then I got an error in the app for the battery being too hot after that charge. I thought that was a little strange. That's the first time that particular error's happened. I mean, there's been a litany of problems with these damn things, but this is the third one. I've had 2 fail. Now, this one has been disconnected from the charger and disconnected from the cart for over 24 hours. It is about 68 degrees outside, and the battery itself 86, 85, temperature of the cart itself is about 72 degrees, kind of anywhere, right? On the side with the BMS, this thing has been hot to the touch all day. The cart has not been used, it has not been powered on. It's not even plugged into anything and hasn't been for over 24 hours, but yet somehow it's starting to cool down a little bit, surprisingly. It was like 130 something degrees a few hours ago. I don't know why. It's just hot, not doing anything, and no errors are showing in the app. Alright, following day update. It is 11 in the morning the next day. Let's see what we got here. Temperature of the cart itself 77, concrete 76. 70 something degrees outside. Alright, battery 84, 108, 109. This side where the battery management system is noticeably hotter. On this half, no, that one's not too bad. Something over here is very warm, and again, it is still completely disconnected from the charging system and completely disconnected. Those connectors failed. The original ones did, so I had to redo those. So 36, creeping on 48 hours, this thing has not been connected to anything, and it is still over 100 degrees. Here's another update. This is the next day at... Alexa, what time is it?
Good morning, Ryan. The time is 9:49 a.m.
Okay, 9:49 a.m. the next day. After my previous video, which was the following day after the previous one. So anyway, here we go. Temperature, this thing always starts in Celsius. 74, out in the sun. 90, really? 100? Yeah, doesn't feel that hot outside. Anyway, I think it's like 70 degrees something outside. Cart itself is about 73, 74. Just about everything here in the garage is 70 something degrees. Battery is still not connected to charging or plugged in at all. It has not been. Battery's still doing its double blink sequence, and the battery itself, 80, 107, 108. Still well over 100 degrees 3 days later. I don't know what the hell this thing is doing, but I'm taking it that there's probably, I'm figuring at this point there's probably an internal short in the BMS, since the side of the battery that's getting hot is where the BMS is located, which is a pretty common failure, being that I have another one of those damn things taken apart. Wires marked, BMS removed, BMS bypassed for testing and charging. The pack itself works, puts out well over 50 volts. Just had to go past the BMS to be able to test it, or make sure it actually took a charge. This is the BMS that fails. I cut the wire connector out of it. It was sitting here, blah blah blah. This is the little blinky light LED, that they stick into the top. It's almost kind of like a little fiber optic LED. Got our charge circuit lines and stuff like that, but they completely coat these BMSs in epoxy, so there's not really a way to take it apart. I tried to kind of chip some of this out, took the nuts off the backside that were like hot glue gunned on here. You can hit them with hit them with something and they'll pop out the other side, but I mean, there's no point. There's no taking this thing apart and figuring out why it's failed. This BMS in particular on this battery arrived DOA, completely unresponsive. I found out that the pack had power and held power for over a year. August, I guess it's kind of coming up on a year since I got it. 8 months or so. It held power. It was still had over 50 volts in it, but was completely unresponsive to the charger. Would not output any power, anything. But once the BMS was removed, it does in fact have full battery voltage. So the pack itself is salvageable if I can get a new BMS. I actually had to take the Dremel out and tried to cut that away to get it disconnected. I mean, everything is just completely like poured in epoxy. So there's no salvaging these other than replacing the BMS on these batteries. Yeah, so much for that Uno. Giant pieces of shit. 3 for 3 on issues with these guys. And my cart was the one that they, were so kind to use and damage in their testing and development. All right, here we go. There it is, removed. There's the other one. Came out of the cart there. I have found the best way to cut these things open. One of those things. And the BMS is located on the same side as where the cabling goes in. It essentially, sits about like that in the pack. Yeah, well, let's do this. I'll be back in a bit. All right, so here we go. Quick little update. Cut basically just past the curve with the buzzer. Be careful not to go, too deep. Hit wires. There are contacts scattered throughout in here on the top of the battery, like those. Now they should, in theory, be covered by a little bit of foam. I've chipped most of the foam away there. But you do want to be careful not to, obviously hit anything metal with a metal tool, short the pack out. And I'm going to slice down the sides and basically just open it up. There's the pack the case that I took apart previously. That one, they are actually glued on the bottom. So it's, as if kind of like basically the top half is a single piece. And then they glue the bottom in place, once everything's put together, is kind of appears to be how they're assembled. But being that the BMS is going to have to get replaced, yada yada, the old case is probably useless. I would prefer a metal case anyway, in case haha, something bad happens. It's a little bit cheaper insurance than just plastic in a meltdown situation. It does appear, so Uno described this, Nick and Trent, the guys that owned Uno and Titan, told me this was basically like a fireproof clay is what that was supposed to be, and that's what they put on both sides of the BMS to account for a BMS failure. That is starting to seem like they knew it was going to be a problem. It stays tacky and has a very funky smell. I haven't quite figured out exactly what it is, but supposedly it's fireproof with like a, kind of like a construction paper. It almost looks like the same kind of paper you put underneath a shingle roof. Backing to it. Yeah, seems like they knew it was going to be a problem. Even though this is layered on both sides of the BMS, one to insulate it from the batteries and one to insulate it from the outside of the case, on this side rather. My first Uno battery that prompted them taking my cart, shipping it to Idaho to then do all the testing and redesign, still blew a hole clear out the side of the battery, and I have a video up of that on my channel. So I've had quite the adventures with these things, and now this is the third one that's done. 3 for 3 for failures. There we go. One side done. You can see that. Yeah, see, that's where they glue the bottom on. You can see some of the glue there. It's a machined edge versus my, cut edges. So the idea is, when you get your multi-tool in there, there's a little bit of space, but when you're cutting, put a piece of tape on the blade or something. You just don't want to go too deep and end up running into any of those cells, damaging anything further, because the pack itself should be salvageable. There's other guys online that have taken the packs apart. Fentertainment, I think his name is. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but Ryan there, the other Ryan, has taken his apart and made drill batteries out of them and all kinds of other cool things, because they are a somewhat decent Chinese cell, 18650s or whatever the heck they are, or 13. No, anyway, I can't remember. But there we go. In any case, aha, there I am. Yeah, just be careful when you're cutting it apart. Don't send the blade in there too far. All right, I got the other side off. Getting that glued bottom. How I disassembled it last time was I noticed that bottom was a separate piece and started there and then cut my way up. But this is a new one. All right, so on my other pack, there has been the quizzical use of a popsicle stick. Now, that's very much popsicle stick sitting in there. I'm assuming it was, an impromptu shim. It's also wood, so it's an insulator. Yeah, whatever, it works. It seems a little backwoods hokey to me, but you know what, fine, whatever. Well, what's funny now, though, is I open this one up. As soon as I peel the side off, you know, bam, pull it off. I go, oh, look, more popsicle sticks. This one has 2 of them taped together on the side, and then what appears to be a green colored, is that a drinking straw? Yeah. I mean, the guy definitely likes his green, you know, being that, I mean, it almost matches. But yeah, that's doesn't appear to be heat shrink. Doesn't feel right to be heat shrink. That definitely feels like a just like off the shelf 7-Eleven drinking straw that was stuck in here as a shim or to fill space. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of funny. All right, let's keep going. There we go. Okay, so I've got this one cut. Figured I might as well try to record this coming apart. Again, be careful how far you shove metal objects into the battery. Let's see here. And there we go. There's that paper, the clay, and a very, very warm BMS. There she is. Apologize for my terrible camera skills. As should have brought my wife out here to do this and help me. See, now this one is done a little differently because, oh no, they are glued. So there's like, looks like it's hot glue, like a hot glue gun. Little coating that they put over the screws there. But there we go. There is the back side of the BMS. So, you know, for comparison's sake, this one that's out, that's how it is sitting, essentially. On the other, yeah. So it'd be flipped around this way. Like that. It sits like that. And these cut terminals there and there are actually the ground. So it's a ground switched setup. The hot goes straight out to the battery connection. So it sits like that. And then this little thing is the little blinky LED light. You know, it's kind of like a little fiber optic light. But there we go. Cool. Let's keep going. Aha! More straws and popsicle sticks. You know, so these are definitely, it's just a homemade battery. I mean, it's really what it is. There's, you know, I thought maybe there was a purpose behind the green. No, it just turns out that one matched. These are definitely like 7-Eleven drinking straws, AM, PM. I mean, they've since been filled with foam, you know, because all this stuff got sprayed in. But again, be kind of careful. Yeah, these are just drinking straws. Wow. It's funny. Holy shit. No, I didn't notice that one. Yep, that's definitely just a drinking straw. Looks like I nicked it a little bit with the blade. Yeah. There we go. There's all our, I didn't even notice that one. Yeah. Gas station drinking straws. I mean, part of me is like, you know, I applaud the ingenuity. That works. It just feels, for something you're spending close to $3,000 on, I don't know, it just feels a little hokey to me. But, then again, pretty much every single one of these things is either failed or going to fail, so at this point it's not surprising. Alright, here we go. So, yep, flipped it up on its side. SW 18650 30-30SP 21K01A 136981. Yep. So anyway, that's one of the batteries. They all have a slightly different serial number on them, but yeah, 18650s. Yeah. So let's chip away and get the BMS out of there. Now, when chipping away at this foam, I do highly recommend plastic tools. I was using, stuff like this. It's like a door and trim shim thing, from all my automotive shit. Because then if you do touch something that you weren't supposed to touch, since this pack does still have juice, I mean, that one's got 56 volts just sitting in it. Or thereabouts. You don't want to, touch boom boom bad things. So yeah, cool. Just a word of advice. All right, so at this point, because you see, here's that other backer layer with the clay. That they've kind of encased the BMS in. Basically, there's the BMS right there. You can get in here. They used like some scotch tape type shit to kind of tape some of these things in place. But at this point, it's not too hard to just kind of get in here and, sorry, my camera skills are terrible. Get to a point where you can just start kind of chipping some of this stuff away, so you can separate the BMS from the pack itself. Again, there's a lot of scotch tape, it's like packing tape. I mean, it's like whatever works. It's, it kind of basically like taped the thing together, stuck it in the box, and then sprayed foam down it. As we can see, the foam didn't really make it to the bottom. Didn't quite so much on this one either, from what I remember. Yeah, very little foam on the bottom of that guy. Alrighty, here we go. So after, chipping away, pulling the packing tape and the foam, and getting down to where some of these connectors are. Oh, it's got a zip tie around it. We've got the BMS pretty much uncovered. So that you can see how it sits in these. There we go. There is our BMS. Now what's unfortunate, see, they've covered this thing in an epoxy, and then that ends up epoxy filling the connector here too. So it's just not serviceable. If you could pop this connector, replace the BMS, then, I mean, it might not be so bad. At some point in time, you'd realize, again, because that was what failed on mine, one of these capacitors exploded, blew a hole out the side of the thing. These might have been like a serviceable pack. What's interesting in comparing to like Bolt, Roy Pow, Allied, the Million, Cloud Energy, all the guys that have these metal case form factor, they all look the same at this point. It's everybody seems to be making the same battery. They're probably all made in the same factory in China. Is that and you can look up those videos, if you open up one of those cases, it's serviceable. All the parts, the connectors, everything's in there, and it's inside a metal case. So if something, did go wrong, I mean, technically you could replace the solenoid, replace the BMS, put a new pack in, swap cells, things like that. This is just completely unserviceable. They've taken the time to, even epoxy all the connections and stuff. Where on this one, not quite as much. I chipped the glue and the foam away, but this one doesn't have quite as much epoxy poured in around it as this one. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. So it's unfortunate. So there we go. Well, this one, oh, that's interesting. That is an interesting revision. See, on this pack, that's soldered, very much soldered, and I cut the charge line off right there because I was mounting it externally at that point. This has a mechanical connection instead of solder, so that I prefer. Because that heat cycles, things like that, vibrations. This with a little Loctite, in theory, won't ever go anywhere. Yeah, so they did mechanical connections on this one. Now, these were supposed to be from the same batch. So that's an interesting difference. All right. Well, I'm going to continue cleaning up foam and stuff like that. And then I'm going to get to the point of, yeah, this thing is still very hot. Where'd my temp gun go? Okay, so wish this thing didn't start on Celsius every time. Yeah, it's warm. Something wrong. So let's see if we can kind of narrow down. Huh. Why it's so warm? Definitely feels warmer in this area, this region, which I'd have to look at the video where it blew the hole out the side of it, but I feel like it was up in this area because it was pretty central, which tells me one of these blew up. But the warmth of the pack tells me, yeah. That's definitely in this area here is your main source of warmth. Something, yeah, right about there. Something in this region of the BMS, bottom center, basically. Series of capacitors, something, is what's hot. So, yeah, yep. So it would be, somewhere in this area is the source of our temperature issue, which is, probably also our battery drain. Now, for example, alrighty, here we go. So I have disconnected, other than the individual, cell monitoring, I guess. I don't know a ton about lithium batteries. Probably about as much as everybody else watching this freaking video. But I've got the pack disconnected. I've removed the charging cable. The rest of the ground that, came, because that one went in, this one went out. So, the BMS controls the ground side. So now what I need to do is get all this disconnected. It'd be nice to just unplug it. Then I could leave those wires intact, know their orientation, as I've essentially done there. The problem is there wasn't a practical way to do that, so I made sure they were all lined up, taped them, put a little super glue in there so they don't move around, but now I know the order, so that order will match this order. It's backwards, but yeah, that's the idea. Because reverse engineering or whatever, I need to figure out how to hook that up to a new BMS. So yeah, the easiest way I found to do that, because everything's epoxied together, was with this guy. So there we go. I would just take this and cut, and cut the connector out, which is essentially what I did here. I was trying to salvage it. It didn't work out. Wires got frayed. Yeah, so you just get to the point where you've got no choice. You just cut the fucking thing out of there, because this thing's junk anyway, so who cares, right? There we go. The unfortunate part about all this is I don't have batteries for my cart anymore. I mean, at least I'm keeping it from catching on fire, but I am going to have to figure out how to salvage these to make my cart functional again. I'm hoping I can source a decent BMS and rescue the packs. Or I don't know, maybe make a 72 volt pack out of the combination of these or something. But we shall see. Alright, so I definitely do recommend when you're cutting, a little note, put a fan up. This shit stinks to high fucking heaven when you're cutting it. Probably not safe to breathe. I have no idea what any of this shit's made out of. Yeah, it's gonna smell. Wear eye protection, wear ear protection. Oh. Anyway, what's this strap in my glasses? That looks fucking terrible. Yeah. Do that. That way in case you short something while you're cutting it, because technically it's still sort of live, I guess. I mean, there's power coming through those wires. But it'll blow the smell away. Yeah, I'm touching something in there. Every now and then there's a little spark. So something's still hot, obviously. Oh wow, that's a new noise. I didn't even know this thing made noise. What the fuck? It's got a noisemaker in it? Huh. That one didn't do that. Oh, that's the noisemaker. Interesting. So that's what that is. I wonder what the app says. Alright, so being that, yeah, so I broke that away. You can see kind of how I cut it, basically, tried to get kind of after the pins there. I mean, that does mean that this is technically still live. It's not making any beepy noises anymore. The minute I finished getting it out of there. I mean, you really don't need to do this if you chip away all the foam and you know which wires go where and blah blah blah. I want to maintain the connector just so I know the orientation, because if by chance I can figure out what BMS that is or whatever, I can repair up some wires, right? just for kind of, sake of might be useful information. But other than that, I'm just going to cover this thing in tape so it doesn't touch anything. Chip away the rest of the foam, make it look like that one so things are accessible. And, essentially get ready to try to save these things because, at least the cells themselves are decent. It's just the computer brain that runs everything that's a giant piece of shit. It appears to be, I have searched and searched and searched. I cannot find any BMS that even looks close to that thing anywhere online. I would think, based on how kind of rudimentary the rest of this stuff is put together with, straws, popsicle sticks, and, all the other goofy things that they've decided to shove in the case. It's kind of like whatever they had laying around and whatever was free at the AM PM. That would be an off-the-shelf part to some degree. Something simple. If they really did go to all the trouble to engineer their own BMS, well, they did a really bad job at it, because that's what's failing. So, yeah. Anyway, maybe that's useful information for somebody. Thanks for watching and listening. This has probably turned into a really long video after all this. Yeah. Hopefully that helps somebody. Please feel free to comment. Tell me how I'm an idiot. How I'm touching things wrong or shouldn't have cut that, or, whatever. Like I said, I never claimed to be an expert in any of this. I'm just trying to, garage engineer something to save them. Because that's about $6,000 right here. And then another $3,000 on the first one that failed. It's a lot of money technically that's sitting there that should be useful. So, yeah. Hopefully that helps. Tips, suggestions. If you find a BMS that works, give me a heads up. Appreciate it. All right, so something I just noticed. I was going to kind of sign off and, eventually start doing some edits and maybe post this video in like a year. I had noticed you can tell that's the older pack because it has the soldered connection versus, it's still soldered, but then it's using an actual physical connection, and it's, toward the middle of the circuit there. This one's toward the top, whatever, right? There's the old connector that I cut out. Trash bucket. This one appeared to have had a repair done to it before it was sent out. So, BMS side. And I noticed this down here, and I just thought, hey, whatever. Tin's cheap. Something might have happened, so it looks like that connector broke, and so I put another, you can tell we welded it a few more times. This has been repaired, right? This is how it came out. Well, I don't know. I'll have to go back through the footage to see if somehow maybe this happened while I've been fucking with it. But I just got done taking this thing apart, and I noticed the exact same corner. Now, I took these apart a different way. This one got disassembled from the bottom first and then slid out of the case after I cut the, wire loops off the top. So you can see, that's the original case there. I cut the bottom, one side, cut the connectors, and took it out. Second time, I just literally cut every side apart on the case, starting at the top. This connector is broken. So, I don't know, no idea if it's always been like that, if that was a manufacturing defect that maybe, has been sort of like staying in contact, and that's why it's been kind of working until now it's not, or something. But it is interesting to have it be on the exact same bottom corner of the pack. So that may be a useful clue to somebody that's having a problem with theirs, is if on the wire connector side, that bottom corner, which would be where let's see, you'd have like the Uno sticker, says 90 amp hour or whatever. So it'd be this corner, if I remember correctly. I took all the stickers off of mine. F those guys. If you're having a problem and you cut this area open, check that corner. Because this one is definitely broken, and this one was and has been repaired prior to that battery being sent out. This was also the one that was DOA. So I don't know. That is interesting. There we go. See, there's the popsicle stick sticking out of the side of the first DOA. Second battery, first of these two to be disassembled DOA, and this one, the one we just took apart, cut the connector off the BMS, and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's helpful. Maybe that's some sort of defect that some of these are just going to have. Is something in manufacturing. Maybe he was putting them in the cases or something like that. He kept breaking the bottom corner. I don't know, but yep. I mean, I think Trent and Nick should offer a lot of people refunds. I mean, they made a considerable amount of money selling this inferior product, and then touting American made and 10-year warranty and all this, and pretty much every single one of them has failed in less than a year. A few people seem to have theirs kind of holding on a little bit, but yeah, it seems more often than not than these batteries fail. So that's a pretty messed up way to do business. In any case, yep. See you next time.